you feel a sense of satisfaction. You have done something for others, but at the same time, sometimes it feels like you're in this tunnel and you just don't know when you ever see light. Will things ever get better?
Creative Conversations.
Hey Zouk family, welcome back. Another week talking to who we would describe as international superstars. And I have to admit, this is an incredibly special guest, someone that we dreamt of reaching out to, and she so humbly responded almost immediately and made herself available to talk to us. We are exceptionally humbled and appreciative to talk to one of the most, if not the most inspirational people to ever come on our podcast. Hannah Yeoh, Member of Parliament in Malaysia, but so much more to so many young, aspiring women who want to go into any career. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry, Joseph, I was late just now.
No, not at all. We'd happily wait a very long time to catch you. We're very excited ever since you so kindly said yes. May I ask, how have you been? How is, 2020 is behind us now, but 2021 has been a bit of a challenge so far. But on the whole, how have you been?
I'm well. I have a lot more time now with my family, but at the same time, we are very conscious of the fact that many people are struggling outside, the traders, the business people, the hoteliers. And as a result of that, almost on a daily basis, we have to follow the news closely and find the best way to speak up and to respond to government's SOP and procedures. So even though we're at home, we're very busy, constantly having to respond to issues online. Yeah.
It's a very challenging situation you find yourself in your professional career, because there is no blueprint to resolving how to operate during a pandemic. It's a very challenging time, and there are constantly changing SOPs with the main onus on saving lives. Has the last year been for sure the most challenging in your career so far? But even if I can take a step back, Hannah, if you don't mind me asking, how did you end up in this career, and how did you decide one day, I want to get into politics?
I studied law in Australia, and after studying law, like many young Malaysians, I really wanted to obtain my PR in Australia and just work in Australia. But I applied for PR and I couldn't get my PR. So even though I had a job at that time as a lawyer, but because of my PR application, my father said, he had no money for me to keep trying abroad. So he wanted me home. And I came home, I was very reluctant, I was very upset. I was in a long distance relationship. And as a result, the constant longing to find the best opportunity to migrate, to leave the country. But also in that time, I was working as a young lawyer. And after working as a lawyer for about 2 years, I then left to do events management. So when I was doing events management, it was quite humbling, moving from a professional job to supervising people in shopping malls, managing contests. So if you spend 100 ringgit with your credit card, come and redeem a free teddy bear. And my job at the time, after going through a lot of legal documents, I was checking receipts and counting teddy bears for shopping malls in Kuala Lumpur. But I was happy because I felt I had more time for myself. And also at that time, I really wanted to just devote more time to serve in church. So I was very happy with after 5 job and having more time to serve. During that time also, as an event person, I had more time to have long lunches with my schoolmate who also came back from Australia. And so over lunch, we would always be complaining. When I say over lunch, we had chicken rice in a coffee shop in USJ and just constantly talking about the state of Malaysian politics, corruption and all that. And so after a while, he said, as Christians, there must be something that we could contribute positively instead of just complaining over lunch. And so he encouraged me to register as a voter, to go out and vote out the government that I didn't like. And so I did in 2007. I registered to vote for the first time, and he joined a political party. I decided to join so that he wouldn't go to meetings alone. And so I joined this schoolmate of mine, and right after that, I got married in 2008 in January. And at that time, right after that, the Prime Minister dissolved Parliament, and they were looking for a lot of young people to just contest. And so at that time, opposition didn't stand a very good chance of winning, especially in Subang Jaya. It had always been won by MCA. So the party then said, why don't you contest for my hometown, Subang Jaya? I said yes. I felt that was the right time. And we did that, and then we won. So it's been 12 years since I got involved in politics.
And you must have felt a huge amount of pride winning. And secondly, how has the career matched up to what you imagined it would be like?
Obviously, everybody was very excited and happy. First time opposition won. We won 5 states at that time. And for the first time, people felt we had a two-party system. But internally, I was 29 years old. I just got married like weeks before the election, and having to adjust to becoming a public figure. My life is no longer mine. My weekends are no longer mine. So I spent 2008 and 2009 really just in a lot of suffering, to be honest, just having to adjust to the fact that my timetable is just full of meeting people and attending events. On Friday nights, my sisters, my friends would be hanging out. I had to sleep early because Saturday morning, I had to go for a spring cleaning. Like, which 29-year-old or 30-year-old would do that every single weekend, for a few years? And it's not a job you could easily resign, because when you resign, you would trigger a by-election and you can no longer walk around. People will be so angry for wasting their time and their resources. And so I had to adjust to all that new role, having joined politics, becoming a wife, at the same time a state assembly person, and learning everything about politics. It was not easy learning to speak Bahasa again, because we learned that in school, and then I went off to Australia. And then if you don't practice at home, your BM would not be very good. And so I remember my first speech in the State Assembly, you just have to practice and practice and practice to gain that confidence to speak again. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I mean, the amount of pressure that you carried in that early stage. And one thing that you said really stands out to me, that you can't just walk away. You can't just decide one day, I've had enough, because you have not just, like most of us would have, a family that relies on us to provide welfare for. You have an entire constituency, and you're still there now. So I take it that the passion is still very strong in you. You've obviously made a lot of positive changes. You're obviously a huge icon, not just in your local constituency, but across Malaysia. And have you found that your love of being a politician has grown over the time?
Definitely, there were very encouraging moments, when you speak up for an issue and then the government listened and then the people got what they wanted. You feel a sense of satisfaction. You have done something for others. But at the same time, sometimes it feels like you're in this tunnel and you just don't know when you ever see light. Will things ever get better? And for me, I think personal development, it's very enriching, the experience, having to see yourself cope with stress. When I was a lawyer, I was constantly under a lot of stress because every document I was looking at, there is the potential legal suit that would come out from it, that liability issue. And so I lived in constant fear when I was a lawyer. And I felt at that time that, maybe this was the amount of stress I could manage as a young person in her 20s. And then I joined politics, right? And my first term, my second term, and then the crisis just became bigger and bigger. And I realized that in every single crisis, I could still sleep at night and I would wake up. The world has not ended. And so, one person actually told me this advice, if you need a break, go on a holiday. If you need to just take time for yourself, do it, because the world will not end just because you're having a break. And so I learned that that crises will always come, stress, difficult times will always come. It's really about how you cope and how you manage it. And so from this very little stress, I was able to stretch myself and then later on the crisis became bigger and bigger, and then you had to handle a constitutional crisis. When I was Speaker of the Selangor State Legislative Assembly, we had to change the Chief Minister, and it was a huge constitutional crisis. But I could still sleep at night at that time, because I just felt like, even if I don't sleep, nothing is going to change. So I should not worry about it and just go to sleep. And so now at the age of 42, after 12 years in politics, I've learned that my stress level, my faith level, everything has expanded. Yeah, I cope a lot better.
What I really love about your story, Hannah, is that you went to the mamak, you were having your chicken rice, and you made a conscious decision to activate change. You decided that you were going to take steps to actually see through change, because it's very easy to complain, it's very easy to whinge and then hope someone else will do the heavy lifting. Now you're doing the heavy lifting and you are facilitating change, and that's hugely admirable. If you don't mind me asking, when you stepped into politics, and I come from the UK, one of our biggest and most iconic, not just leaders, but inspirations in the political field was Margaret Thatcher, who had both a hugely meteoric rise, but also faced huge difficulties once she walked through the door, just for the nature that she was a woman. If you don't mind me asking, was there any difficulties you faced stepping into the political arena as a woman, or was it widely accepted?
When I stepped in at the age of 29, newly married, I didn't have kids at that time. So my gender didn't cause any problems for me. It was more of my youth, my age, because I was 29. So a lot of people say, oh, you don't have experience, you lack the experience. So people didn't take me seriously. I almost have to earn the right to be at the table, to be taken seriously with how I respond to issues, with my opening remarks. So representing a place like Subang Jaya, it's city, I didn't have problem with my gender. Second term, when I became the first woman speaker of the Selangor State Legislative Assembly, and also the youngest, at that time, there was great pressure for me to perform, because they have never seen a woman speaker managing debate in the House. And so I had to consciously tell myself, don't be emotional, don't get triggered easily, don't be angry, don't send anyone out unnecessarily, because then they would say that, a woman is not suitable for this role because you can't take the heat. And so I had to be very conscious. Every single debate, every single time people started quarreling, I have to be extra patient. And I delivered in 5 years. I did not need to send anybody out. At the same time, we got the opposition at the time managed to pass their motions in the assembly. So that, I think, it was more of an expectation. People were not used to something, and an expectation that I place upon myself to do not fail the women of Malaysia. So that's it. But by the time I became a mother, I think that challenge of managing as a young mother, having to work and spend weekends away from your kids. And I believe this is true for a lot of young working mothers. Suddenly that role of being a mother, a woman, you feel in a way quite disadvantaged compared to other colleagues, For example, if I have a party election, there's no way I could travel around to go and campaign because I have this role to juggle at home. And so these are seasons that you just have to manage, and these seasons will also pass. But what's really important for young women who want to excel outside, your support structure at home must be very solid. And this means, if you are very sure what you want before you get married, talk through all these things with your spouse to make sure that you're both on the same page. It must be a shared goal. It's not just something you want and your husband doesn't share that, because it takes you away, many, many weekends away from the things that you want to do together at home. Yeah. So those were the seasons, I think.
That's fantastic advice for people to tune in on, that your support structure is invaluable to you. And I heard you before mention your faith. Your faith and your family must have been your rocks during the difficult times, and also, as you say, long distance, something I'm used to. My partner is in Singapore, I'm in Malaysia, and having that acceptance, because it turns from being a disappointment into a huge support when they help to carry you through those difficult times. It's fantastic that you had that support. I wanted to be cheeky and ask you, which is more difficult to manage, small children or a room full of politicians?
Both. At home, I think when you control snacks and chocolates, it's easier to say, if you don't behave, I'm not going to give you chocolates. But outside, you can't say that to your colleague. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. If you look back at 2020, and we have a huge millennial following of this podcast, as well as people in the older generations who will definitely resonate with the memories that you've brought through from your career. 2020 was a hugely challenging time, not just in the physical context of the lack of movement and the great adjustment to working from home, and unfortunately for many people, the loss of jobs, etc. But there's been a huge mental toll, which I think existed before, that some people have been struggling with, but was accentuated. During the 2020, how did you find yourself facing up and overcoming some of the difficulties that must have affected you just as it affected everyone else? Was there any words of advice you can offer to people who have found it particularly difficult in this last year and perhaps still do?
For me, 2020 was a year of great loss, personal loss, because for 12 years you get involved in politics and your entire aim is to be able to win federal power and then change the nation. And when we finally managed to win in 2018, we made it to Putrajaya. I was given the role of deputy minister to look after women, children and family issues. That's something very, very close to my heart. And suddenly in February 2020, Sheraton move happened. We lost power, and I became from a deputy minister to an opposition MP. And it was a time where, you have just mastered the issues. You're about to run because you've just passed the budget in November and December. You're about to execute it and run. You have all these plans, appointments made, and then suddenly you lose power and you're stuck at home because the lockdown also came about the same time. And that adjustment needed, from feeling very important to suddenly having nothing to do and in lockdown. And then you start to grieve over the missed opportunities, and then you worry about the children who are being abused, and I don't have this opportunity to do this anymore, and I don't know when this opportunity will come again. It took me about maybe 3 months to cope and to talk through it with my other friends who were deputy ministers. And I remember speaking to Dr. Ong Kian Ming, the member of parliament for Bangi, and he told me, he said, Hannah, just let it go. And I felt better because I felt somebody else could relate and just encouraged me to just let go. There will be a new season that would come and an opportunity for us to serve again. So when you go through a time of loss, I think grieving is important. So I took some time to grieve over that loss, and then picking it up, embracing your new role as an opposition. If this is my scope now, what can I do with this? I may not have the money, I may not have the position to do this, but I still have a voice. I can still speak up for children in parliament. And so I have learned to do that, to add pressure to the minister and the new deputy minister. That's
a great in-depth analysis of not just difficulties you faced, the losses you faced, and how you came through it. And thank you for sharing with that. For people who are watching at home who really resonate with what you stand for, and I believe that there's very few people who wouldn't, and they would like to use their time at home to help the issues facing women and children that you're talking about, what's the best way that lay people around Malaysia can really step up to support?
When you are stuck in a place like that, obviously, I'm very, very mindful that many people who lose their jobs, I think it's important to pick up new skill and to improve yourself. So the challenge I have at home is, my husband would always ask me, what are you doing with your life? I feel that I'm already doing a lot, but he would constantly push me to do more. And so he would ask me, are you reading on new things, or are you learning to do something new with your life? Go and get your go back to legal practice, or don't stay stagnant. I think that's the message. So there are ways you can improve yourself. So for me, I have never been a good cook. So during MCO, I learned to bake. It's not perfect, but at least I feel a great sense of satisfaction. Even when I bake, people don't really want to eat because it's not so yummy. But I feel like, I can do this. And nowadays with YouTube, almost anything, you can self-learn online. So find ways to improve yourself. And I also think that every every season when you are down, it will come to an end. That season will end. So just hanging there long enough, and I think talk to people. Talking it out really helps. Yeah.
And let's look at the positive light. We're coming through 2021. Hopefully, we will come out of this MCO soon. There are vaccines on the way. What are you looking forward to most once we get into a frame of the new normal where all of us can breathe a little easier?
I just want children to be able to go back to school. I think it's very sad to hear of stories. I mean, I have parents who contact me telling me about their children with special needs just banging on the window because they just want to go out. They don't understand what's going on. And my kids are constantly asking me, when can I go and see my friends again? Or when can I have a birthday party again? When can I go and see my grandparents? And so we take for granted some of these things that we used to enjoy. Also, I'm very mindful that there are people in situation of in a lockdown where they are abused by their own family members, and people don't share the same fortune as others who are able to go out and all that. And so for me, I feel that once it opens up, it gives people the opportunity to go back into a new rhythm and to be able to not live under this very oppressive place. You're just constantly locked down in the same place, and children really need to be able to go out and play freely. It's so difficult telling kids, don't hug your friends, don't touch your friends, wear your mask, and it's just not how things are supposed to be like. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to the time people can just go out and be free again. Yeah.
Hopefully, people watching this video, if they are going through any sort of difficult time or abuse or are in any difficult situation, hopefully they take an inspiration from this video to speak up. As you mentioned earlier, support structure is invaluable, and hopefully a sense of community. We always say for people, even if you're dealing with mental health problems, but if you're also, as you mentioned, dealing with physical or verbal abuse, hopefully people will take an opportunity to speak up, because suffering alone, especially if you're in lockdown, can be hugely disadvantageous to anyone. And what last thing I want to ask you, how does Hannah Yeoh relax? Obviously, you have immensely high amount of pressure in your life. You're constantly on the go. You're constantly looking out for everyone else. You're looking out for constituents. You're looking out for family, etc. How do you enjoy your downtime?
Having an afternoon nap. If not for the MCO, that's not something that I had the opportunity to do. And I felt like in the last 12 years, constantly on the go, but suddenly this lockdown, I was able to redeem all that lost time in my youth, and so I find afternoon nap very, very useful, and I felt like it's such a luxury for me. During last time, when you could go out freely, I would fix appointments in shopping malls. I love just being in shopping malls, and just I don't have to buy things, but if I can just walk around and see, I feel very distressed. I feel like I have power. I can walk to any shop I want, and I can, and at the same time exercise, because you are walking and taking those steps. And shopping malls in Malaysia, they are very, very big, so if you circle a few rounds, that's equivalent to walking a few rounds in the parks. That to me, and also Netflix, watching romantic comedy. Yeah, that's what I enjoy doing.
All of those are key. They're almost luxuries outside of the Netflix, which is a little easier now. Walking around a shopping mall is a bit of a luxury nowadays. So I look forward to enjoying that when you can. And my last question to you, Hannah, and thanks so much for taking the time to chat to us. We're really finding it very special. Is if someone wants to follow in your footsteps, and as I mentioned earlier, you are a huge inspiration to many people. Many people aspire to have the bravery and then follow with the hard work to get to where you have got yourself, to have a voice to make change, and to be selfless enough to dedicate time to others. How would you advise them to start this journey? If there are young ladies out there, even young men, who would like to follow into politics and make a change, what is your advice to them?
There are many ways you can contribute or to be an activist, and it really depends on finding the right cause. And so some people are passionate about children. It doesn't mean you have to join politics. You can join an NGO, or you can write about that, or you can, today with social media, everybody has a platform to share freely to your friends. So I think what's most important is to identify your cause identify your conviction. What makes you fiery? What makes you angry enough, or what makes you passionate enough to talk more, to look at that issue every day? Discover that, and if you really like frontline politics, be an intern, volunteer with a politician, and then get into the rhythm, and then you discover, if this is really what you want. So nowadays, with YouTube and also with more young people in politics, it has opened up many opportunities for people to just experiment, just go and volunteer and try it out. Compared to, in 2008, we didn't have a lot of young people at that time winning positions. So there was really like a lack of opportunity. But today, so many people talk about it freely. Yeah. So most important, I think, identify what makes you angry or happy, and then pursue that. Reading is also very important. Yeah.
We do notice a lot more young politicians now, and there seems to be getting a huge amount of following, almost garnering sort of celebrity status. But it's great because it might encourage future generations to look up to politicians and feel more relatable, rather than seeing a 60-year-old man standing that you can't really relate to. So at least we hope that the next generation will listen to this and be inspired to do so. But I really, really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. As I said many, many times, we've had so many requests to reach out to you, and you were so fast to get back to us, and we are humbled by that. And we thank you so much for your time, because we know even today, as announcements comes out with new SOPs, and we've just literally a few days ago had extensions of MCOs, etc. You must be incredibly busy, and to take time for us, we are really, really appreciative.
Most welcome. Thank you.
And please stay safe, look after yourself. And when MCO is lifted, the Zouk team can't wait to take you to a shopping mall and buy you chicken rice.
Okay, and if I go to Genting, I'll look for all of you.
You please do. Take care, Hannah, and thank you so much once again.
All right, okay. Bye.